Hey guys, before we get started, just want to take a quick moment to thank Deer Camp Coffee and Yeti for everything they do to help keep us awake and energized for the whole show and keep you guys entertained. Make sure you subscribe and stick around to all BowHunterPlanet stuff so you can get into chances to win things. And hey, let's have some fun.
The BHP Podcast is presented by BowHunterPlanet.com. Join the hunt.
Support for the BowHunterPlanet Podcast is provided by HHA Sports, Cold Steel Knives, Scott Archery, Burris Optics, Element Outdoors, Reveal Cellular Trail Cams, Deer Camp Coffee. Additional support is provided by Yeti.
Hey guys, welcome to the BHP Podcast. Myself, Dave Thomas, along with Matt Kormann from the ATA Show, or Archery Trade Association. Matt, how are you?
Doing great, Dave. Really appreciate you having me back. Been a long time since we talked in Indy in January.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously the news came out. Not a good thing, right? Everybody's sad about it. People really love the Archery Trade Association show. And one of the reasons we want to have you on today is just so that you guys could speak from your perspective on kind of what happened, what's going to happen now. I think there's a lot of questions in regards to this. So I guess I'll let you just kind of go for it and tell us what I guess first off, what happened, how did it come to this?
Yeah. Like any big decision, it was super complicated and we had to take into account all sorts of different perspectives and input. And I think, it's pretty obvious we're not alone in this. Virtually every trade event in every industry has been canceled or significantly adjusted in some way as a result of what we've all been going through for the last 7 months. We really started when everything kind of locked down in March. We took a look at all sorts of different possibilities that might occur all the way, through next March. We looked forward about a year, and we decided at that time we needed to wait. As you know, there was a lot of panic going on. People didn't know if their businesses could be open. Lots of states were confused about who they were shutting down and why they were shutting down. Businesses were open that didn't know they couldn't be. There was tons of confusion last March. I think there's still some confusion now for sure. But we decided to wait. Normally we would have started in about April or May, really kind of ramping up and seeing who wanted to come and exhibit at the show. We held that off until July, and made a decision in the summer that we wanted to find out if exhibitors wanted to come. And by and large, we got a massive response. That told us to find out, okay, do pro shops want to come? Do retailers want to come to the show? So we opened that process up in September. We got a big response there too. Now it was down quite a bit from the last couple of years, the retailer response was, but it was still strong compared to what we expected. But then as things kind of evolved here in the last 3 weeks, as I said, we had to take everything into account. And the more we learned, the more we realized we were really not going to be able to have an archery trade show. It was just not going to happen based on what everybody had come to expect. And we could not provide the things that I think especially buyers, retailers, pro shops would want to see when they came to the show. It didn't really come down to one single factor. It could not have. Way too complex a decision. And ultimately, with our leadership team on staff and the 20 board members, and it was a very challenging conversation over the course of a couple weeks, we came ultimately to the conclusion that the best chance of success for Louisville in 2022 was to just hit pause and not try and bring everybody together, in 2.5 months here in Indy. I think that also gives us the best chance to continue doing the things that we've been really aggressively trying to do with the show to make it an event that our members and the bow hunting and archery community want to attend. Could we have moved it? Not really. It takes 5 to 7, sometimes 10 years to plan an event where you're going to bring 7, 8, 9, 10,000 people into a city. Moving it was not an option. We've had a lot of folks ask, well, okay, just change the dates, move it later. Well, now think back to the first thing I said, which is that literally every trade show has canceled. All of those folks are trying to find dates later and later in the year. It's just not an option for us to move those dates. They're simply not available. So it was a super hard decision. I think everybody involved in the decision, if you just asked, from the heart, what's the decision? Well, we're going to go have a show. We all want to go have a show. But when you take a look at everything that was involved and everything that led up, especially just in the last few weeks, the head prevails and had to make that incredibly difficult decision.
Yeah, I think the decision is extremely complex. I think that anybody to say that this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. This decision, like you said, it takes into a lot of considerations. You're talking the dealers, the buyers, the media. There's the companies themselves have to decide whether they can get people there to do it. There's the travel part of it. There's the living part of it. There is the show venue part of it. I mean, there's a lot of things involved in the cities, right? In the city of Indy, what their rules are. And not to mention, going in that show and having to wear a mask the whole time, which would be kind of hard to do, especially for media. It would just be very difficult scenario and not really comfortable, I don't think, compared to what we're used to when we think ATA. You think you got the Badlands Film Fest. You have, there's so many things going on based around that show, that it's not just the show. You have all these side things going on of all the companies who bring their teams together. And it's a huge, huge undertaking. And obviously it would have taken a lot. I personally felt like this was going to happen, only because, not from your guys' perspective, but mainly from the city's perspectives and the rules and the government, what's going to happen. I mean, there's so many questions. And this thing is like, I feel like no one really knows what this virus is going to do in the end. I mean, if every time you think it's going down, it starts going back up, So, I mean, it's just all this crazy stuff. So I guess my other question would be with this is, what do you think will be the fallout from this? What is going to happen now?
Yeah. Fortunately, let me tell you the question I get asked almost every time I start a conversation, which is, how are you doing? Or how's the ATA doing? And my response has become, I think better than we ought to be, quite frankly. The organization ATA, the leadership that came certainly before me, but a lot of our leadership team has been here for 10 years or more. The board members who've been serving for, oh my goodness, sometimes 10, 15, 20 years. That group of folks going back 20 years spent an enormous amount of effort to build up this organization to a point where it could do the best job possible at withstanding just about any challenge. And so we're actually in pretty good shape. We've got a show that I think folks pretty much want to attend. We've got programs and services that I think are important and recognized as valuable to the industry and to the shooters that we serve and try and help. So at the outset of this conversation, I'll say we're probably in better shape than we ought to be. The reality is, no matter what we did, Dave, we were going to alienate some folks. Had we held the show, we were already starting to hear that from folks that they were concerned with the decision that we were going to continue to hold it. Now that the decision has formally been made to cancel, of course, we're hearing from those folks. There are some folks in the middle of that who might have been on the fence, who, until you make a decision they don't even know where they stand, whether they would be comfortable coming or upset that they can't come, or upset with the restrictions that you put in place for them to come. So I think there's a real bright light here, which is that hit and pause allows us to really take an opportunity to do two things. First, to prove to our members that ATA is more than just a trade show. And we have been forever, but we've been so focused on the trade show. Our members have been so focused on the trade show that sometimes that the other things that we do get lost in the shuffle. But secondarily, I think, as I mentioned before, it gives us an opportunity to do a better job with the show. It gives us a little more runway for 22 to help continuing the evolution. We had some really cool stuff, brand new stuff planned for 21 that we're not going to get to execute in 21, but our commitment is that we're going to bring those and more to 22. And I've got every confidence that we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I guess my other question with this would be, does this change something for you guys? Does it give you some sort of opportunity that might not have normally been there for online? Is this is there a way for you guys to create Zoom meetings for dealers to talk with, and kind of be that middleman, that kind of what you are now, just instead of this year? I'm talking about this year. I'm not saying for every year, but maybe, who knows? Maybe it could turn into something that be another option as well.
So now I got to bring you back to March and April when we first started going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? One of those options that became very clear was we had to have some backup plan that did not include getting together in person. And very early on in that process, we figured out that we needed to have that available, even if we did come together to have a show.
Mm-hmm.
We knew there was going to be a significant percentage of our members who probably wouldn't feel comfortable coming or couldn't come. We've got states now that are quarantining if you travel state to state. If you return, you've got to test and quarantine for 2 weeks or whatever it is. I think Chicago has new restrictions out specific to Indiana just in the last couple of weeks as well. So we were trying to take that into account very early on. So the upshot is, we're not trying to do all this in the last 2.5 months. It's been in process. I'll tell you, overall, around virtual events, what we've learned, we've seen it firsthand. I used to work for a company that produced those things along with in-person meetings and trade shows. Everybody that you talk to who's been involved in that, whether they participated, put on a show, or provided that kind of technology, comes out saying, it was okay, which is not a real resounding endorsement of the whole virtual platform option. And so we've taken that to heart too. And we're trying to take into account what we know about our members and what we think that they'll want and how we think that they'll consume things. First of all, we're not going to ask folks to go to a different website and log in and do all that stuff. They're going to go to their member portal. They're going to log in just like they're logging into ATA.org, and they'll be able to find the education that they would be able to get at the show. By the way, we were going to do that anyway. We've already been talking to the educators who are going to bring content to the show to ensure that we could have that available for them. We're talking to specific manufacturers about potential show date only specials during a virtual run. And then we'll expand a bit of the exhibitor and retailer, the buying selling platform that we've had, so that exhibitors, and especially for product launches and availability of different types of products, evolution of products from year over year, they can showcase those a little bit and give retailers, buyers an opportunity to figure out how to best contact those folks. What we have learned really specifically is when somebody tries to get in the middle of that selling process, the sales cycle, and put those two folks together, that's where a lot of it breaks down. So we're going to try and do a better job of just giving the information about how to communicate, and then letting those, especially those well-established sales forces who are already out in the field selling, do their jobs and let the buyers do their jobs. We know that retailers are really struggling right now getting stuff on the shelves. We know that there's got to be a pathway to restocking and buying new product. And we're going to try and find the balance there of giving buyers an opportunity to buy while sellers still can use whatever they want from us to sell.
Yeah, that can get complicated too. Like you're saying, that's not another easy method compared to what you guys have normally been doing. So let's talk about Bowhunters United, something new that's actually a very positive caveat in all this. Something you guys came to us about, I don't know, maybe in August, and saying that you wanted to launch this new program, and it was going to be 10-1. It was very exciting to hear, and very exciting that you guys, engaged with us to get going on it, because I love collaborations. I think it's really important in the industry. But so Bowhunters United, tell us about the new program.
Yeah, again, in the same way that it takes 5 to 7 years to plan a trade show, you don't start something like this when you think there might be a hiccup in your future, because by then it's way too late. This really started, oh my goodness, almost 3 years ago, when we started looking at strategic planning for the organization, and what kind of gaps were we needing to fill, what was missing, what could we do that would better serve the archery and bow hunting industry, while also helping bring in especially new bow hunters, because that's the vast majority of the industry, but also kind of reinvigorate those existing bow hunters. So it really started with strategic planning almost 3 years ago. And then in August of 2018, we launched a feasibility study. We contracted with somebody to go out and figure out, was there a need for an organization like this? And if there was, could it be created without putting too much pressure on the organizations that were already in place? We didn't want to hurt existing conservation organizations, for sure. We didn't want to hurt anybody out there that might say, boy, this is a big competitor to us. And I think we found that niche. I'm confident that we have. We're looking at partnering with those folks rather than competing with them. And I think the timing really couldn't be better. we have more folks getting out into the woods now than ever before. License sales are spiking in virtually every state. Harvest records, I don't remember the state, I'm sorry, but there's a state kind of near me here in Georgia that that recorded in a youth weekend for turkey season, I think as many harvests as they normally had in the entire spring season.
That's crazy.
I mean, people are getting out there, and it's terrific. So an organization like this that can help advocacy, that can help with community, that can perhaps help with mentoring, where we've found QDMA's Field to Fork program is second to none. Can we somehow kind of cross promote that and bring more mentors so that we can bring up more bow hunters? I think there's a lot of opportunity here specific to bow hunters that's been untouched for a while. And again, I think the timing is just perfect for us right now. The incredibly strong industry sales that we're seeing. Virtually every archery industry manufacturer is having at least a record quarter, if not a record year, based on all those new hunters getting out into the woods. And that effort, the Bowhunters United effort, is really, I mean, it's a standalone effort. It doesn't really matter if the ATA has a trade show or not. This thing is up and running. The vast majority of the heavy lifting behind it has been done over the last couple of years. So it's up and running. It's ready to go. BowHuntersUnited.com, Bowhunters United on all the social platforms. It is a great place to start. See who that organization is and what it does. I know I've been going on here for a minute, but David, give me one more second. I think it's super important to note that while the ATA is attached to this thing right now, the purpose of this is for the industry to stand up the organization and then get out of its way. It needs to get started somehow, but this is not the ATA putting a leash around this thing and running it like the industry wants to run it in perpetuity. That's just not the intent. We need to get it out there, see if there's a desire and a need for it, and we think that there is. And then once it kind of learns to walk, let it run on its own and let it govern itself and have industry get out of the way. But to stand it up takes considerable effort, and that's a considerable gift from the industry to bow hunters.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be very helpful for the industry to have that. And I think it's one of those things where you have something of that complexity, but you need something like that for hunters to grab onto and believe in and be a part of, because I think it's very helpful, the ideas behind it. And if you go to the website, Bowhunters United, you guys can see yourself like what it's about, how it works, conservation efforts, things of that nature. It's very important, I think, that people research it themselves, especially if you're interested in that and get into it. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think you guys are going to really crush that one. And hopefully, I like the idea, like what you're saying, is at some point it's going to be its own thing and it's not going to be attached. I think it's really important. Like you said, let it govern itself and become what it becomes, because obviously having it separate is very helpful, I think, in the end. But yeah, so besides all that, Matt, how's everything else going personally? You doing all right?
Boy, like I said, probably better than I ought to be. I actually kind of like that question, because the answer, the further into this we get, family is good. My daughter's a senior in high school and enjoying that senior year in person, and kind of crazy that we're going to be empty nesters soon. But in the same way that we think about the industry and trade show and Bowhunters United and all of these things and what these last 7 months have done to change all that, I'm also kind of, seeing her getting ready to go off to college just reminds me just about every day about what there is in the future for us, and kind of brings everything full circle, brings it back home. That's really helped keep me grounded. And again, as much as the decision was really painful and I think hard to arrive at for ATA around Indy 21, I feel like I think the most important thing I can say is I feel like we did the right thing. I go back 7 months ago and I think about all of the decision points that we hit to get to that board meeting where that vote was taken. I don't know, Dave, how we could have done anything different or better that would have gotten us to a different outcome. I think unfortunately, the right decision was made. I don't like it, but I think it was the right decision that we made in the right way for the right reasons.
Yeah, personally, I think this is the first thing that's happened in the industry this year that kind of like, oh, we're touched by this too, because like the industry's been pretty like almost growing. Our Instagram's out of control. Our everything we've done has been so high this year, higher than normal. And people are hunting more, like you said. It's really an amazing thing for hunting. But I think this, for the industry of bow hunting, was the first thing that says, whoa, something this is not normal, right? This is the first time we've been touched, I think, as a industry, with the ATA show not happening. Sad to say, but it is what it is. Yep. And the other two things I want to throw in there is just, one of the things ATA did this year earlier on, and I would love for you guys to get back to and do more of, is like media summits, learning summits. These are all online things, but to be honest, no one ever asks the media people as much. And I think ATA is the perfect venue for these things, because you guys can bring people together. You have the dealers, you have the media people. But no one ever asks us, like, what are you seeing in the media? Like, what are people buying from your perspective? What are they asking about? What are they into? Do they still talk about speed? Do they talk about feel and grip and comfort? No one really asks that to us. We usually say it in our videos, but no one's really asking. And I feel like that's something that bow manufacturers should be hearing from a perspective of all of us. Like, what are you hearing from these other media outlets? Like, what are people asking for? A lot of times you'll do a video and you'll have people on there commenting, when are you going to do the elite bow, or when are you going to do the APA bow, or when are you going to do the, and so it's like, so obviously they're asking for that, so it's like, those are the comments that I think the dealers need to hear and see and, recognize that stuff's going on. And on the other note is media to media, what are you doing that's working? What are we doing that's working? How can we all help grow archery? And I mean, I think this is a great year for it because of this. Not that you guys aren't busy already, but if now you have more time, this would be
a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. This would be something to put the team on to start working on, because I do feel there's a lot of opportunity in just the talk of growth of archery in general. How can we help? What can we do? Who can be involved? How do we do it? Those are the questions that need to be pushed, especially now that we know that the sales are higher. They're higher in Michigan. They're higher in every state that, like you said, I've seen. We know that people are buying more equipment. I've talked to manufacturers and they said they're selling out like crazy. And it's just because of the spike of COVID. There's nothing else to do. And now people can get outside and learn to hunt. I mean, that's crazy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. A couple thoughts on that. We talk about how well the industry is doing, which also makes it really kind of confusing that we got to a point where we canceled the trade show. If the industry is doing so well, if sales are going so well, if manufacturers are 6 months out on production times, which we've heard from some, especially the OEM folks. I mean, it's amazing how strong things have been. So that made it, I think, all the more difficult to get to the decision we made. But relative to a media summit, down the road, a shooter summit at Bowhunters United takes off, and we can do something along those lines from every constituency group. I think it makes sense. If you look back to how ATA is behaving, especially this year and in the last 7 months, we've really pivoted pretty quickly to being much more service oriented, trying to educate retailers about how to take advantage of federal programs, federal assistance that can help bridge them through closures. Print and shoot. We one of our folks, Jill, created a coloring book for kids that store owners just went nuts for. All of those kinds of things that we've done differently, including a couple months ago hosting our first ever State of the Industry webinar. I think that's a great example. All those are great examples of how willing we ought to be, and I think we are, to doing exactly what you're talking about and soliciting more feedback proactively, not just wait for you to come and say, hey, that's a good idea. I don't know a single media entity out there in the archery and bow hunting space that wouldn't want to see that happen. I think it's just now incumbent upon us to pull the trigger and make it happen.
Yeah, I've always felt like if anybody could do it, ATA would be the organization to do it, just because you already have the whole thing interweb with your trade show, that you already have all the connections. You already have all that. All you have to do is just turn it on and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't hurt anything. It's just a helper. And I think at the same time, I think it really it projects that, what you guys are doing is really helping even more, because you're able to host these events and, even if they're online and whatnot. I was really excited about the in-person ones this year. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah,
the media stuff you guys were going to do this year was very exciting. So hopefully, I'm assuming those will come back when you guys, bring back the show. And when do you guys think you'll know
100%.
more on the following year? Do you know when you guys will know more? Is that going to be like mid next year, or it's already?
I think 90%, 95, maybe more percentage of that, higher percentage of that is out of our control, right?
Good point.
That's kind of a good reminder to a point I wanted to make when I first started. Had we had this conversation 3 weeks ago, I'd have sat here and told you that I was 95% certain we were going to have a show.
Yeah.
That's how quickly things evolved in the last few weeks. I'm 100%, 99% on 2022 right now. We need to see what happens with businesses, with government regulations, with a vaccine, with who knows what. Between now and then, we're full speed ahead. I don't think we've seen the last outdoor recreation industry cancellation. I don't think we've seen the last trade show cancellation across any industry. I'll be shocked if that's the case. We certainly were the first. There's no way we'll be the last. There was another one that came out, cancellation that came out the day after ours in the OR space. So these are going to continue. Unfortunately, again, it sucks. We wish it were something different, but right now I'm as confident as I was 3 weeks ago. But what these last 3 weeks have taught me is that we'll plan for a bunch of contingencies while really hoping that we get to the right point and holding the show in 22. Quite frankly, 15 months from now, I don't see what stops us.
Yeah. All right, Matt Kormann, Archery Trade Association, thank you so much for coming on and setting the record straight on what's going on so people know direct from you guys. And we look forward to what the ATA does do this year and next year, in regards to the industry as a whole. Because like I said, I do believe that it's the strongest organization out there when it comes to archery. So I know you guys do great things regardless. So thank you so much.
Thanks a ton, Dave. Appreciate you having me back.